welcome to That Squirrel Speaks. Today is Friday, January 13th. I'm Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. Hello. Thanks for coming over in January. Right? It's already like the middle of January, y'all. How did that happen? Are you writing the correct date on your things yet? I started to say checks because like that used to be the big thing when I was younger. Like was making the transfer on your checks, but like I write so few checks now, I don't even know. Thanks for coming to visit. Have a cuppa. Let's see. Grab some citrus. It's sumo season, y'all! If you're new to the channel, I have two obsessions. Okay, I have like 97 obsessions. I have two distinct food obsessions, and one of them is apples, and then the other one is like specialty fun winter citrus. And so, have you found the sumos yet? I am in the middle of Indiana. And if you're not in the US or you're not familiar with US geography, like when you look at the map, there's like the little string of lakes that are like up there, kind of in the right-hand corner, or rightish side. I'm below like the kind of like the big long one, kind of ish, generally. That's a geography lesson. Whatever. But their sumos showed up for me. The first one I had was on January 2nd. That's the first one. Was it January 2nd? I think so. Yes, it was January 2nd. I found a sumo in the store and I was extremely excited. Now, the ones I have to show you, the one I have to show you today is the only one left of the 6 I bought. And I really contained myself. So this one is not like the most beautiful specimen. Usually they have, they're called sumo because they have this like top knot. They have like a little like, it's essentially, I think that the, is it mandarins? That's probably not right now that I say that. Why do all the citrus names sound like, how do they like all smush together in my brain? Like mandarin, tangelo, tangerine. I got tangerine, I think. We have satsuma. That one is distinct, but I don't ever see those. But anyway, so they have this beautiful like big bloop on the top. And they're kind of like, the first time I found them in the store, I thought these have got to be good because they were not attractive. Like the skin is, well, I mean, they're not like fruit, like shiny, glossy, waxed apple fruit roll attractive, right? They, let me just see if I can get a really good image of one. And they're, when you pick them up, they feel like, sometimes they feel like the orange is like the orange itself, the flesh is kind of like loose in the skin. And I just thought of a very upsetting analogy, but I won't use that. But anyway, they feel like lots of times when you touch them, you're like, is that right? They're delicious. They're so amazing. So like, this is kind of like Target's picture of a sumo, ideally. Okay, that's not, sorry, that's some bad lighting for you. That's very washed out. But so they have that like the knob on the top, and so the combination of like that knob and then the fact that the fruit feels almost like loose in the skin makes them like the most easy thing to peel. Like you thought the little clementine-y things, you thought those were easy to peel. These are astounding. They're amazing. And they are the most consistently, amazingly delicious citrus I have ever had. Like, I would say maybe 5% are and 95% are like they will make you eat mindfully. You're like, no, I just need everybody to be quiet. I need no distractions. I need mood lighting. Like tell your Google Home to give you mood lighting. Your partner may get jealous. It's okay. Tell them to simmer down. Give them a sumo. You can share this experience. Now I'm a relationship counselor. You're welcome. But you just, don't eat it in front of the television. I mean, you do you, right? But like, they're amazing. They're amazing. So I'll probably talk about them next time too, because I'll probably have a better example to show you. And I'll actually peel that one, and like we'll have a moment together. But also I have been enjoying the Plumello. That's right? Pomelo. I see I always mess that one up too. And it's this giant beast, right? And they are like a feast. Like you are just like, you're the most decorated of like fancy international explorers, and like, what is happening with this fruit that has come to you? It weighs like 12 pounds. It doesn't, but it's, and the rind is so thick. You cut into it and you're like, have I been cheated? Is this whole thing pith? What is happening? It's not though. It's super thick, and you think, I'm never gonna be able to peel this because the rind is like half an inch, 3/4 of an inch thick. And you're like, this is never gonna work. And then you get to the actual citrus itself, and it's sort of like grapefruitish in size, but the membrane around, so like, okay, so you have the citrus, right? And then like it comes off in sections, right? So that membrane that's around each section is like super thick, and you think, you don't need that. You can literally like peel it off like it's paper, and then you are literally just eating the little like juice cells. Like you are having a natural go gushers. I don't know what those things are, but I just read a book and he talked about eating those gusher candy things. But like you're having that as a natural experience, and it's amazing. Like you get to eat the little, like you get, it's like a pomegranate but citrus. Like you get the little like magical prisms of sunshine. Like the photons that came from the sun are like captured in this amazing, just like little nexus. Oh, and it's just there and you can eat it. I just finished reading The Pleistocene Reviewed by, I don't know, by that person who wrote it. And if you've read it, I give Winter Citrus 5 out of 5 stars. It's amazing. I think I might start doing a transition. I think I might start doing a monthly like book roundup instead of like talking about books here in the regular episode. I may try to do like a monthly reading recap or something. And that may be like, remember last time we talked about reading journals? And I really realized that like, I actually don't want to write about like, what did I just read? The Maid. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't really want to write about like, or like checking off the books, like some books, checking them off on like my Goodreads or whatever. Like, I'm trying to do better about that. Checking them off is sometimes sufficient, right? Like I don't need to have further deep thoughts about, I don't know, I just finished all my crummy books. The next one I have is The Girl I Was, and I cannot get into it, by Geneva Rose. Can't get into it. But Well Met. I just finished Well Met, which is like a little rom-com-y thing, which by the way is super cute. If you're a modern romance kind of person, they are the setting is like a local Ren fair, and like I have issues, but like suspend your disbelief, it's fine, and it's fresh. But like I don't need to like write like much, like I don't need to like ruminate over that necessarily. I can enjoy it. It would be fun if we talk, like it would be fun if you were here and we could be like, oh my gosh, did you enjoy that part? And then we'd be like, yes. But I don't necessarily need to like reflect and like put down my thoughts on that. But like this Pleistocene the Pleistocene Reviewed, like that does, there are things that like I do want to think a little bit more deeply about that and like try to reflect a little bit more. So maybe I will do like again, somebody pointed out like, well, you are like kind of doing a journal in a sense. And it is true, like it is a journal. It's obviously there's an audience intended, so it's not a total journal, but like adjacency. So I might try to do that maybe like once a month, just like something, like a couple books I enjoyed this month. And things I didn't, also totally possible. No, I might do But winter citrus, y'all. I mean, there is no sunshine out there, but just, I mean, I don't know, is there, what are those daylight lamps that you get for the seasonal affective disorder? Like maybe just the sun made these things. So like the sun is in there somewhere. I could just push them against my body and then ultimately consume them. Just saying. Watch out, Zoloft. Winter citrus. That's just saying. If you enjoy the Zoloft, great. I'm not saying this should substitute for it. I'm just saying in a quippy, silly way. Watch out. Citrus. I hope that's what the YouTube chooses as my picture. Just saying. I don't know that Mary Oliver ever wrote a poem about them, but they are poetry worthy. They are definitely poetry worthy. Okay, so this is a podcast about knitting. Oh, I am wearing my After Party sweater. So After Party is a pattern. I knew I would do this. Oh, I didn't do it. After Party is a pattern by Astrid Trolland. It's in the magazine Lane, which I know is not how I'm supposed to say that. But also the people at Lane have been like, do you? I'm like, I bought it. It is a pattern that is available in a finished bust circumference of 37 to 54.5. So it could do better. It could really do better. But this is mine. It is written for fingering. I knit mine in sport weight. So mine is knit from Bartlett Yarns. So Bartlett Yarns in Maine. Their sport weight and some, like, it's sort of low contrast. It's not like super low contrast, but it's a little bit low contrast. And it is a highly enjoyable sweater. The sport weight somehow just makes it go just enough faster than a fingering weight that you feel like slightly more like this is slightly more doable. And also, if you're looking for it to be bigger than a 54.5 inch, your sport weight will probably give you a gauge that should bump that up. But anyway, I do enjoy it highly. It's been finished for a long time. I just thought I would mention it since I'm wearing it. So yeah, there's that. Boo, boo, boo. What are we doing? We're finding the place about what we're doing. We are looking it up, people. So what else? Oh, okay. So administrative things. Thank you so much for your interest in the library bags. I am working on those right now, and the next shop update will be mid-February, so probably February 15th. So yeah, just FYI, fatsquirrelfibers.com, probably February 15th for our next update. Another administrative point. Several of you commented on the camera change, and I just want to send a big thank you to patrons of the podcast. They are the folks that make things like that possible. They're the folks that they basically just make this whole thing possible. So big thanks to them. If you are watching and enjoying, just take a minute, get that thank you in your brain, just like push it out. Thank you. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast, you can do that at patreon.com, the Fat Squirrel, I think, or you can just Google Fat Squirrel Patreon. Or easier yet, you can look in the links on the drop down, and I'll have like the squirrel support. So you can do Patreon, or if you're interested in just saying like, hey, I watched this episode and I really enjoyed it. There's a Ko-fi link if you just want to like buy me a coffee, which would be much appreciated. What else? Oh, and then I also wanted to say thank you. I meant to say it last time. A few episodes back, I don't know what happened, but I can't remember what I was talking about, but so many of you like chimed in with just like motivation and encouragement on doing the podcast. And I think it was maybe the Christmas tree one where the lighting was extra weird. So I just, and I needed like to be grounded. That's probably what you were responding to. I just wanted to say thank you. Those were really appreciated. I always appreciate your comments, but sometimes those positive like encouragement things are just, I don't realize I need them, and then they happen and I am really touched and really moved and very deeply appreciative. So if you're enjoying a podcast today or tomorrow and you're just enjoying it, you're like, I have nothing to say, like, why would I make a comment? Because I do that all the time. You know, just maybe every once in a while drop the person a comment just of encouragement, or like what you're enjoying about their podcast, or, you know, those things really add up. And I know that some people like actually capture those. I should do that. They capture them into like a document and keep it as like a, when they're feeling like, what am I doing? They can look back at that. And I should start doing that. But, you know, it is really helpful. It's very helpful. So thank you very much if you've left a positive comment, or if you've left a comment just in general, but especially occasionally those encouraging comments are really helpful. So thank you. What else? Oh, I wrote down that we were going to talk about a puzzle I did, but that's silly. I did a puzzle. It was cute. Okay, well, yeah, I did a puzzle. It was really cute. And I'm just going to put it in here. It was part of my like Christmas treat. My husband got me a Barnes & Noble gift card as part of my holiday present. And I got to have like a morning at the bookstore. I'm very jealous of, Bloomington has a beautiful little independent bookstore. But whatever, Barnes & Noble's great. And oh my gosh, do you remember Joseph Bev? Do you remember Borders? Oh, I loved Borders so much. But anyway, so it's just so nice. I got to go on a date by myself and just look at all the different books, and it was chaos in there. Apparently there had been a big sale, and it was like which I was excited. I was very like, oh, that's nice. But it was just nice to go and like look at different books and like make my little selections and like get my stack of things I was going to decide on. And then one of the things I got to decide on was a new puzzle, which was just like a little 500 piece puzzle. I'll put a picture in here. And it was just really cute and enjoyable to do. Loved it. If you're ever looking for a puzzle, like, I guess I've never done like a puzzle brand recommendation, but Ravensburger always does beautiful puzzles. Bits and Pieces always does beautiful puzzles. Bits and Pieces likes to do the very crazy shaped pieces. Like, not some, like there are some puzzles that do like the shape of the piece is actually the shape of the object almost. They're not like that, but they're like, some of their pieces are like almost like a semicircle, like crescent-y kind of shape, and so their Bits and Pieces, their puzzles really challenge my brain. It's hard for my brain to like rotate those pieces, because part of doing the puzzle, right, is like, isn't that weird? Do you know about this? Like, is there something weird that happens subconsciously when you're doing a puzzle? Have we talked about this, or have I just thought about talking about it with you? I apologize if we've already talked about this. Sometimes my brain doesn't understand when there's a camera, or there just is like the internal thinking. Just skip ahead. I won't test you. Like, what is it about, like, what is it about a puzzle? Like, that your brain subconsciously works on it? Like, that you don't even, like, there's one thing if, like, you're like, oh, I know that this now, okay, I'm working on this bird and it's got a green stripe in its wing, and I know that I put some green stripe pieces over there. Like, that's one thing. But there is also this place where things just, like, there's, like, a bunch of white pieces, and you somehow just are like, oh, that is the white piece. And, like, you've not consciously decided to, like, rotate that piece into the position it needs to be in. Like, what is that? Fascinating. Is there any sort of like Jungian analysis? Is there like a layer of the collective conscious that is like helping me work puzzles? That's like, sorry. That's like thanking Jesus that Pepsi was on sale or something. Like, I am really not utilizing the power of the collective unconscious if I'm just using it to work my puzzles. But whatever. This is like a very strange thing that sometimes happens where you're just like, ooh, and I am not like, but it does happen more, like the more puzzles I think I've worked consecutively, it happens more and more often. Which I think is interesting, that puzzles might be a thing that you could get better at with practice. Like, that doesn't seem like it's a thing. Like, but again, maybe it is just part of your brain, like honing in on those like rotations and reflections and like, anyway, it's very interesting. Puzzles, man. Yet another Pleistocene reviewed topic. Oh my gosh, maybe I should do a zine of like Pleistocene reviewed ripoffs. Citrus puzzles. I think I could make 12 of them. I'm just saying. If you'd like to know more. But so yeah, I don't have a puzzle going right now. There's not one on the table. Shame. For shame. I even went to Home Depot and got a bigger board to work my larger puzzles on. But anyway, so that's bits and pieces. Those are the ones that have their very strange pieces. And then there's lots of, like the New York Times puzzles always seem to go together quite nicely. I'm just kind of looking at the thing at my stack. There are lots of good, I mean, most puzzles I've tried are pretty good. I will say that the Charles Wasaki ones, I think that's the word. I don't know. Those are not good. When I say they're not good, what denotes a not good puzzle to me? Also, the Advent puzzle, if I had worked that without it being like broken into 24 sections, it would have been a garbage puzzle. Because there are too many times that puzzle pieces fit where they don't actually belong, and that is that's very frustrating. Sometimes you can tell, like, oh, this puzzle piece fits like physically, but visually it doesn't fit but sometimes you can't tell. Like, again, if there's like a bunch of white in a background, or like the image just sort of changes on the crease of the puzzle naturally, like you can't always tell, and that is very frustrating. Also, my husband bought me like a 300 piece Christmas story puzzle. It was like I don't know if it was Thomas Kincaid, but isn't that silly? It was really fun when I opened it up because the pieces are like this big, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's gonna take me like 10 minutes. I'm so excited. It was missing 3 pieces and had 1 piece duplicated. Let me just tell you, it took me a while to figure out where that was a piece duplicated. Again, it took me a long time because too many pieces fit where they don't belong. And then I think that may be the first puzzle I've ever had that had missing pieces. I could be wrong. There may have been another, but I mean, it's very rare for me to get a puzzle that is missing a piece. That one had 3 missing. And if it were like a fancy puzzle, I might actually like, although how do you do that? Like, how do you say like, this puzzle is missing a piece? Like, how do you denote which piece it is? Like, do they send you the piece, or do they just say, sorry, brah? I don't know. Is there like a forum? Like, is somebody selling pieces of puzzles? Like auto parts, but it's puzzle pieces? I don't know. That's a lot I didn't intend to talk about when I talked about that puzzle, but there we go. Oh my gosh. Also, these pens are amazing. This is Zebra Click Art. Do you know about these? They're not a pen. They're like a marker. I can't attest to their long lifedness. It does make me a little nervous when you have a marker that is not capped. It does make me nervous. Like, it's just drying out in there. I can feel it drying out. But they're very enjoyable. Okay, I didn't mean to talk about this either, but like, whatever, we're here. Do I have it with me? Okay, also, I think they coordinate with these pens. These are Zebra Click Arts, and these are Zebra Sarasa Clip. I don't know how I feel about this thing. This is apparently a Zebra thing. I don't know. It creates a lot of extra bulk. I'm not sure that I really care, but I will say, let me mark my place. What I will say is something that's kind of nice is if you can't be married to one pin, you can put your marker there, and like, because it's got this thicker clippy thing, it does go over like a hardback. So that's pretty cool. But, oh, speaking of things, it will not like go in the pin loop. Like it will if you fiddle with it, but it doesn't easily go in there because it has like a grippy thing. Not again, this is the pen and this is the marker. So the Swarovski, it's a gel, right? It's a 0.5 millimeter, and I think they coordinate. I can't tell you for sure. I got these individually from Jet Pins. Jet Pins, man. If only I were a millionaire. Jet Pins. Like, I think if you look at my order history on Jet Pins, they're all like the first of the year. And I always like that they're like themes. Like one of my orders is just like all pencils. Like I just went all in on pencils that year. But anyway, I got these individually just to try out, which is such a great thing, right? Like you can get individual things versus like having to buy like a whole color pack. And so these I just happened to choose, and I'm pretty sure that there's a set of these click arts. It's like vintage, or I don't remember, deep jewel, I don't know, whatever. And then there are these that are called vintage, and there's two sets of these, and I think that they coordinate with each other. I mean, I don't know why you care, but like, look how exciting that is. You can have your marker and your pen. Jet Pins. I give them 5 out of 5 stars. So enjoyable. Okay, that's not what I meant to talk about though. Okay, so we talked about citrus season. We talked about the camera. I talked about thank you. Oh my gosh. Did you see that there's, this is completely unrelated, but I just happened to be on Kickstarter. I don't know what happened. I was just blowing time on the internet. I happen to be on Kickstarter, and they have a fat tarot deck on Kickstarter right now. So if you're interested in tarot and fatness, together or separate, I don't know. But just FYI, it's out there. If you just Google Fat Tarot Kickstarter, I'm sure it'll come up. It's February, I think it ends like the 1st of February-ish. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I never would purchase anything that did not have better images, indications of what the final, whatever. I would buy Fat Tarot. So hopefully it's not disappointing. I do not endorse them. I'm just telling you. I gave them some of my dollars. Fat Tarot. Okay. And then, okay, what else is in this beginning nonsense part of this thing? Oh, games. Okay, so luckily the teen is out of school now. They really did finish high school. Like, I thought for sure something would happen and they'd be like, no, 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 no. You definitely need to do this one thing. No, they're just like out of school. So they're like applying for colleges and doing some stuff, and I'm hoping that they're going to get some sort of like volunteer job or something, but whatever. It does mean that we've been able to play some board games, and I don't think I talked about this one yet. So this is Three Sisters. It is by Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle, and it is by Motor City Gameworks. It is for ages 14 and up, and it is 1 to 4 players, and the average play time is listed as 45 minutes. It's a roll and write. So, yeah, I guess it actually is a roll and write. So it's, if you don't know what that is, it's usually just an indication that you're going to have some like little scory pad, and you're going to be like making, like this is your game board, and so you get to make all of your marks. In this case, you actually have 2. You get 2 things that you're making all of your decisions on. So you have like this garden where you're growing the 3 sisters. The 3 sisters are beans, corn, and squash. And thematically, you have you have corn that you're growing, and you have to start growing the corn before you start growing the peas, or the beans, excuse me. Do you know how much joy that gives me? So much joy. And then your pumpkins are off here on the peripheral. But then you have like, so anyway, so there's all of these. This is a great game. Okay, I really enjoy this game. We played it originally at my we had a sewing weekend with friends. And my friend Becca had it. And I was very much in love with it. And at that time, you couldn't get it yet. You could, like, it was one of those things, it was a Kickstarter, but then it just took forever to get to, like, Gen Pop. And so, I was so envious. But finally, it came in, and I had ordered mine through Cool Stuff as a pre-order. And it finally came in, and it's so enjoyable. Now, I don't know if this has, like, infinite replayability for us. Or, I mean, I do think, I would definitely play it with other people. You know what I mean? Like, even, like, I think playing it with different people would make it new again. It's like $30-ish, I want to say. It's in, like, that neighborhood, like upper 20s to 30-ish. But the fun thing about it is it's, like, hecka stressful. Right? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to the garden. How chill and fun. Maybe I'll go to the shed this time. And, oh, I'm going to have an apiary. Oh, no, I want to do an orchard. By the way, there's apple trees. By the way, I never use them. Confessions. I know, shh, apple tree. But, like, you, like, gather goods for the farmer's market. You're like, oh, that sounds so chill. It is so stressful. It's one of these games that feels like there are, not infinite paths, but there are so many paths. Yet if you do not decide on the path you want to take and you just like go higgledy-piggledy, it feels like you get nothing done. And there is a slight element of luck to it because there is some dice rolling that kind of determines which actions you can take. And like there is like the people you're playing with kind of like you're choosing, like they get to choose their dice first. So they get to, like, you may not get to do the thing you want to do, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so there is like that element, which again adds to the stress because you think like, oh, okay, this is the time I'm going to try out this seed spreader in the shed. But like, you can't get the shed action until so much later that you're like, well, that wasn't even worth it. Wasted that seed spreader. It was so much work to get because I couldn't get it in time because Sheila took the shed. Sheila. You know you're a shed stealer, Sheila. Actually, my kid always wants the shed. That's why So it's really fun. And actually I've only been able to play 2 games in a row because the teen is just like, I'm exhausted. I can't play anymore. Gets really invested in like the farming that they're doing, and like I agree. It's very stressful. Okay, it's not very stressful, but you just want to do so much and you have a very limited amount of time to do it. And I would say the only maybe bad thing about the game is, and why the reason is, like, lots of times I'll say, oh, the game says 14 and up, but you can do way younger. You could do younger than 14, I think, certainly. But they would have to be a kid who's played other games before. And they would have to be a kid who can kind of keep a lot of balls in the air at once. Because a thing that happens in this game, which I could see people not liking, is that the fun is that, like, in some ways, is that you can, like, chain effects. Like, oh, I get this many points, and then this, like, sets off this thing. And then, oh, that thing might set off another thing. And then, like, oh, I have to go back here to add the points here to set this thing off. And, you're constantly, like, doing these chains of events. And you're crossing things off on your little sheet, right? But it is still easy to miss something. Like, it's still easy to be like, oh, I got, like, 8 stars, but did I use all of them how I was supposed to use them? Or like, so like some of that can be mitigated through like, just like how you cross things off. Like lots of times, like I will check it, like meaning, okay, you earned this thing. And then I'll put an X through the check, like, okay, you used this thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, so some of it you can mitigate through that, but it does kind of feel like oh, like you do kind of like, have I missed something? Like, did I do all of the like 38 things I was supposed to do this turn? So there is kind of that. And like sometimes I'm like, there was a couple years where I was like, I may have cheated. I didn't mean to. But you know what I mean? Like when you have that chain of events, like I'm like, did I maybe do something twice that I was always supposed to do? You know. So that I could see would not be everybody's cup of tea. But I find it to be very enjoyable. Very thematic, very fun. That's Three Sisters by Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle by Motor City Gameworks. Like nobody sponsors this, just y'all. So, FYI. What else? Oh my gosh, Home Improvement. Maybe I'll just talk about that at the end. It's been emotionally very draining week, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. It's been emotionally very draining. I am not a crier. There has been crying. There has been, what am I doing moment. Like, just like days of just being like, like researching graduate programs. Because I'm like, I just can't anymore. I just need to like live in a very small place with no things around me. So, like, I've been very overwhelmed and like, oh, I guess we're just gonna talk about it right now. It's like, I'll save this to the end. But like, to just be very, like, to be honest and like vulnerable and like, hey, like we're visiting for an hour every couple of weeks and usually I'm pretty much like, ka, but sometimes I am not. So if you are not, please don't think you should be ka all the time. It was, I mean, it still is. It's still a week. It's still a thing. But I was definitely like researching, like, I don't know, maybe I could become a therapist. Maybe I could become a nurse practitioner. Maybe I was like considering like alternate career paths that would just let me live in a very small place with no things. Like, oh, that sounds delicious. Like no people, no things, just like a dog that I would have to take on long walks. Oh, it sounds dreamy. Just I would always have a project, but just maybe one project at a time. And like, I just needed like mental minimalism very, very badly. And it was not happening. And it's still problematic, but like, I don't know if it was just a moment in the like cycle. We'll see where it goes. I don't know if it's a reaction to like having the new year kind of like self-help push. You know what I mean? Like this, I think that self-help pushes, like I enjoy self-help quite a bit. What do we call it now? We don't call it self-help anymore. Whatever, it's still self-help to me. Like I think, again, like inherently those self-help processes of books and like thinking about stuff that, again, it just really turns you inward quite a lot. And sometimes I'm like, I don't like what I see there and I don't want to see it anymore. And so like, I think that maybe those things kind of go hand in hand, like ironically that you're like trying to work on yourself, but also you're like, you know? So like, I'm sure that like that push and then the reaction to the push and then like, hopefully it'll keep going and I just won't like, be like, never mind. I don't need to work on me at all. Let's just buy some stuff. Like we'll see how that goes. But man, and then like, so on top of that, I was trying to use this kind of break in my sewing schedule to work on my bedroom. It's kind of the only room in the house really that I've never done work on. And there were some plaster issues. Okay, there still are plaster issues. Just FYI. Spoiler alert. But like there had been, okay, so like our house was built-ish 1910-ish, right? And it's very common in those houses to have wallpaper actually all older houses, it's very common to have wallpaper on the ceiling. And so I was living in fear that that wallpaper was structural, and we had wallpaper on all four walls. And in fact, one wall we had like that textural wallpaper on. The other wallpaper had all been painted, right? So 3 walls and a ceiling had, spoiler, like 2 to 3 layers of wallpaper on them and had been painted. One wall had just 1 layer of wallpaper. I don't know how that worked, but it was like that 80s like textural, like kind of pearlescent wallpaper. And so I had this, like, I just was living in this state of being so overwhelmed by the project and so unsure of how to proceed that I just didn't, right? Like I just lived with like literal honesty time, like literal wallpaper, like hanging 3 to 4 inches off the ceiling. And I'm not talking like, you know, cathedral ceilings. I'm talking like, you know, standard 7-8 foot ceilings, whatever they are. Like just wallpaper, just like chilling, just like hanging down, just like this. And like not being able to turn on a ceiling fan because the plaster, like to this side of the ceiling fan was it complete? Yeah, there was a place where it was completely, I mean, I say it's open to the laugh. But like if you turned on the ceiling fan, sometimes like a little bit of insulation would like fling off. And I was like, one day I'm going to turn on this ceiling fan and a mouse is just going to like fall through there and just like get winged off. And so like you just like, again, I was just so overwhelmed. Like I don't know how to do plaster repairs. I don't have any idea. Like I know I had watched the YouTube, but like, and then again, like removing wallpaper, I was so overwhelmed. And so I just didn't do anything about it. Finally, I was like, all right, I gotta do something about it. Again, I think like spurned on by my need to have like less visual clutter in my life. I just want my retreat space. I just want some white walls and some like open bookshelves. Right? Like that'll make everything okay. You need therapy, lady. Nah, paint's a little cheaper. So I'd been working and I was just like so exhausted and so overwhelmed by like how not Bob Vila I am. Oh my gosh. Like so humbled by like, cause okay, so part of the fear of the wallpaper, right, is when it's on plaster, you're like, is that structural? And I like made jokes about it. Guess what? It was structural. Some of that wallpaper was literally holding the plaster. And I kind of knew it. Which was, again, one of the reasons I was overwhelmed and afraid to start this project. Because then I started to peel off that textural wallpaper and, like, things were found. Like, no corpses of, like, tiny animals, which was really surprising to me. But, like, almost, like, basically all the plaster from, like, hip down was bad. And, in fact, it the former owners had put up plywood, like instead of like in the place where the plaster must have been the worst at the time, instead of like putting up drywall to like bridge the gap so that you could put wallpaper on it to hide it, they put plywood, which is interesting to me because like drywall you can cut with like a box cutter. I know because I did it. And like I think it's probably cheaper than plywood. I could be wrong, but I think it's probably cheaper than plywood. But like, and they did it in several different places. Like even like in a couple of places where the like the baseboards were attached. Like they had put plywood there to like, because the plaster had fallen off, but it was like below the baseboard so you couldn't see it. But they'd put plywood in there to like just give enough space between the lath and the baseboard to mimic the plaster and the other. It was crazy, y'all. So like there's plaster on the ceiling that I'm like cutting out to like put a drywall patch in. I am very bad at drywall tape. FYI. Like, I had to use the steamer to try to remove wallpaper. I had like so many good intentions when I started, because I was like, I am just gonna get rid of all of this wallpaper, because you can see the seams, and it drives me kind of, it doesn't drive me crazy, but it makes me a little bit like, oh. And so I was like, I'm gonna just completely remove. Okay, I did not remove all. I removed a lot of wallpaper. I removed almost all of the wallpaper on the ceiling, but not completely. I'm just gonna be honest. Some of it, like, I kid you not, I think what happened is that, like, they had done patches of like different dings and things in the ceiling or whatever, or on the walls, and I think they had to apply the wallpaper while those patches were still wet, because it wasn't like the wallpaper was on the wall, it was like the wallpaper was the wall. Like, it is not removable without removing the plaster. Exhausting. And like, so then I had to like remove a bunch of plaster, which is like such dirty work. And of course my husband comes upstairs and sees that there's plaster off of half the wall and is like, well, I mean, don't you think maybe you should remove the rest of it just to put drywall? And I was like, are you kidding me? Have you not heard me up here, like, just like breaking everything for the last 4 hours? Like, what are you serious? Because it's not just like bang, bang, all the plaster's off. Like, you have to, like, it's work. Like, because there's, like, the reason that plaster sticks to your wall is because there's lath, which is like wooden boards that have like a little space between them. And when the plaster is applied, they smush the plaster into those cavities, right? So usually if the plaster is breaking away, it's just that surface plaster. The plaster that's between those boards is still there. Well, okay, that's fine. If you're not putting up more plaster, you don't need that gap. But usually it's really uneven, and like, it's not like it's just flush with the wall. So you have to like remove that stuff that's between two boards so that you can put drywall up without it being like this. Much gnashing of teeth. Much gnashing. And like, also check in with reality. Gratitude journal. Like, thank you that I have this problem to have. Thank you so much that I have this problem to have. But it is always fun. Like, the arc of all home repairs at our house is being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe people fix this way. Like, oh my, what were they thinking? You're doing your repair, and then you're just like, oh, okay, that's why. And then you're like, welcome future orders of this house for the character. Like, that's really, like, I had so many good intentions when I started this project. And at one point, like, there was just like a done is better than good moment of like, just like, come to Jesus, come to the altar call of reality. Like, this needs to be done now. It's okay. I'm not selling this house tomorrow. It's okay. Like, so, like, the gap between the join between the plaster and the drywall is definitely, you can see it like from a distance. I don't mean like I mean like from across the room. You're like, oh yeah, something's going on there. So if you live in an old house and you're like, why did they put popcorn ceilings up? I understand. Why did they put wallpaper up? I understand. It's because in the moment they were just like, dude, we got to get done with it. We are living in this house. We have got to finish this. I was to the point where I was like, if I have to move this bed one more time, I am gonna have a full meltdown. Again, thankful that I have a bed to move. So anyways, it's been a very like intense week inside this vessel. Definitely still working on it. If you were curious, therapists are still all booked. trying to find a new therapist. Good luck. Did I say thank you to Rebecca Kane for Done is Better Than Good? I know she didn't invent it, but she introduced Done is Better Than Good to me, and I really am deeply appreciative of her for that. She does not watch this podcast. She doesn't. Like, what year is this? 25 years? We probably haven't seen each other for 25 years. Well, we definitely haven't seen each other for 24 years. So yeah, thank you, Rebecca Kane, for Done is Better Than Good. It's come in quite handy in my life multiple times. Thank you. I'm just pushing into the universe. So, okay, what else? Okay, so let's actually talk about knitting and stitching. Oh, so fun. Okay, so let's talk about stitching first. So I'll talk about this and then we'll talk about that. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so I am working on putting the binding on my husband's quilt. I can't remember. I don't think I've showed it to you since my mom did the quilting on it. So she has a long arm. So she did this quilting for me, which is like this fun sort of like geometric-y, steppy kind of a jam, which I really enjoy. And I am stitching on the binding. So I like to machine sew the binding on like this, right? You trim up your quilt, you sew, and then I like to fold this over and then stitch it on by hand. And some people get a little touchy about this process. I don't require anybody else sew it on by hand. I just enjoy sewing it on by hand because I enjoy doing it. Because like my husband does not care what this quilt looks like. He will never care that I stitched it. I just literally enjoy sewing it on by hand. So I thought I would just mention that things that I have found particularly enjoyable this time are the following. So I like to use milliner's needles to sew on binding. I'm going to be honest with you. I like these super fancy, expensive ones. So these are the Tulip Milliner's Needles Straw Assorted Thin, 8, 9, and 10. And that just means they're different lengths. But these are my favorites. I love them. They're great. It's a really... Oh my gosh. It only wants to focus on flesh tone. Whatever. Sorry. You do get them in this very cute little tube. That's highly enjoyable. But they are expensive. I think for like 6 needles, it's like $8-ish. But they last a really long time. And I just enjoy them. They make the process highly enjoyable to me. My mom is a fan of these Golden Glide Milliners by John James. So these are her jam. I like these a little bit better. These are smoother, which it has its benefits. But they tend to bend and like stay bent a bit more than these, which do have flex to them, but don't seem to stay in the, you know what I mean? They kind of spring back a little bit more. That's my opinion. Your miles may vary. So I definitely enjoy that. And then I brought the thread over, but now I'm not seeing it. Did it like fall somewhere? Okay, and so then usually to stitch on the binding, I just use like an Aurifil quilting thread. It usually just kind of is whatever I have, like 40 weight, 50 weight. Doesn't really matter for me on the binding. I don't have a preference. Yes, okay. And so usually I use some sort of thread conditioner. I either use, this is my favorite, is this Thread Magic. Why am I even pretending that's gonna work? This Thread Magic. You can get it at like your quilt store or like a Fat Quarter shop or whatever. Or like beeswax. But I gotta be honest with you, even though I really love this, like, because it's cute and cool, like this is really sweet. It's a little bit smoother. And the reason you would use a thread conditioner is to just help a little bit with drag on your thread. So a lot of times a lot of people use it a lot for English paper piecing, which I also highly recommend. It seems to kind of help your thread not get as tangly, as it seems to make it slightly less prone to knotting. And I think because it decreases the amount of drag on your thread, it also makes it fray a little bit less. That's my experience, my limited experience. But when I was visiting my mom, we did a little bit of a needle turning day, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But she mentioned that she uses this. This is hand quilting thread by YLI. So YLI is the manufacturer. It's called hand quilting thread. This is 500 yards, and I think it was like $5-ish. Now, they used to make it in a cone, which is what she had, but apparently they've stopped doing that, because when I went to their website, the actual manufacturer's website, they only had it in like rust and navy blue. So I bought these spools from an Etsy seller. I don't know which one, but again, this is YLI. They're out of Rock Hill, South Carolina. This is 500 yards of 40 weight 3-ply 100% glazed cotton. So I don't know what it's glazed with, but it almost has, it's not wiry, but it has a slightly more wiry feel to it, and it's super enjoyable. So I think it's made for hand quilting, and I don't know if this washes off. Like, I don't know if when you launder it, it loses this slightly stiffer quality. I don't know that you would even be able to tell unless you were doing like super tight quilting. One thing I don't like is that the spool does not have a notch in it for you to like clip your end in. That's a fail. I'm gonna have to get like a little tiny fine tooth saw and just put a little nick in there. But it's really great because not only that stiffness makes it thread very easily. Like, it's much easier to thread your needle. It tangles much, it's less tangly as you're stitching. It's just very enjoyable. So I just wanted to share that with you. I've enjoyed these two things quite a bit while I've been stitching this binding on. And so next time we talk, I'll have this done and get a picture of the whole thing finished. Hooray! And so then I mentioned that I went to my mom's house and did some needle turned applique. My mom is the sewist of the family. I am the garment sewist, but she's the all other sewist. So she does quilting, she does applique, like multiple different styles of applique. She does the wool applique. She does she does all of the things. So I have several of Yoko Saito's books, and I saw on her website, Quilt Party Japan, I think it's quiltpartyjapan.com, she had kits for this little guy. Right. So she has books. She has a book, I Love Houses and I Love Houses Too, or so, like, she has several I Love Houses books. This is not actually in one of them. This is in this one. But it seemed like maybe a good introduction to the process, and especially if I had a kit. I'm not good at, like, I get very overwhelmed. Like, this has, like, I don't know, 10, 12 little houses on it, and I would have been overwhelmed by trying to figure out which fabrics to choose for them, and that was that would have been a stopping place. So getting the kit was very helpful to me. And I'm going to show you mine. Mine is, so you'll see hers is, well, I guess hers is not 100% not wonky. Hers is a teeny bit wonky, but mine's hecka wonky. So here's mine so far. Right? So you get to, you just, oh, how sweet is it? So I went to my mom's and she showed me different techniques for the applique, and we did the freezer paper where you just like trace out your pattern, and it was really great because she had some different supplies, like the very fine weight threads to try, and so that was good for me to like just experience those different things. And yeah, I'm very pleased with, well, yeah, pretty pleased with it. I think I'm pretty pleased with it. So it's still in its, you know, it needs to be made into the thing it will be. It's not really quilted. It is, you apply batting to it, and there are little like stars through the sky that you kind of quilt the lines out from the stars, which I'm going to be very cute. But right? So it's actually pretty enjoyable. When I first started, I was like, this might be my fiddly line, right? Because needle turned applique is like, say you're appliquing this onto another piece of fabric. You're basically using your needle like a tool to turn under the edge. So What's great about it is you don't have to do prep work. You don't have to like try to iron down the edge. You don't have to, there's lots of different things you can do to applique. You can use like fusible stuff that you just glue it. Like there's all sorts of different things. And I'm not saying one thing is better than the other, but I loved the look of this and like what it looked like when I had seen people working on it. I liked the way the process looked. I'm sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. I enjoyed what the process looked like. And so you're basically using a needle to just like your sewing needle, you're just like constantly kind of flipping this little edge under and sewing it down. If you're interested, if you Google Yoko Saito needle turned applique, she has a YouTube video of her technique. And she does multiple techniques. Like sometimes she uses like a tweezer to flip the edge under. And some people just flip the edge under and iron it or finger press it. Like there's all sorts of things you can do. But right. At first I thought it was too fiddly. I was like, this is my line apparently. But then I got really into it and I was like, oh yeah, this is enjoyable. This definitely scratches some sort of itch. So yeah, it's very enjoyable. So again, when my mom was showing me how to do it, she recommended these milliner's needles. I ultimately started using a tulip applique needle that I had purchased for English paper piecing. So I used these applique needles number, I don't know what I'm trying to show you, number 10, big eye. Okay, and I learned that from watching Tulip Pink, because she's like, if you don't get the ones that are called big eye, there's basically no eye in them. And I can see that because these are very tiny eyes. And you do need a really fine needle because, well, if you choose to use a finer weight thread. So Aurifil makes like an 80 weight thread, which I used because I had some. And then there's like this little thread you get like on a bobbin. I think it might even be 100 weight. Like you can get finer weight threads. So threads are the higher the number, it's sort of like needles or like wire. The higher the number, the finer the thread. So like most sewing machine thread, I think is a 50 weight, if I'm not mistaken. So 80 and 100 weight are much thinner. So you need a pretty small needle, because if you use a big needle, like you'll never get a knot to stay like behind the thread, behind the fabric. Your knot will pull through the fabric. Words. And the only reason you would even want to use a finer weight thread is so that it's less likely for you to see the stitch. But like sometimes I don't care, right? Like on the English paper piecing, some people use a really fine weight thread, some people don't, because some people really care if you see the stitches and some people don't. Like I tend to be on the like, I don't care as much if you see the stitches, because again, obviously this is homemade. But it does make us a difference if you go to the slightly lighter weight thread. You can tell a difference in like what number the stitches that you can see. But especially if you're gonna like applique over it, to me it doesn't make it that much of a difference, but just personal preference. So yes, I still need to make it into its little basket. Very enjoyable. So that's stitching, and then let's talk about knitting. But let me find the lid for this first. This is my box with like my little wonder clips and sewing needles in it. Okay. First, okay, I have a finished object. I was like, we'll talk about that first, but no, we'll talk about this first. I have a finished object. I think last time, well, whatever, I talked about making a blanket for a family member who's having a baby. And so I finished it because the baby came. So I needed to finish quickly. So that was good push. So I made what I hope is like a car seat size or stroller size blanket. And ultimately, what I decided to do was hold a strand of superwash alongside a strand of non-superwash. So let's talk about why I did that. I knew that I wanted to use these colors, right? The colors are all Leading Men Fiber Arts callback that I had just collected at different times throughout seeing them in different venues. So I knew that I wanted to use those, but superwash wool is not known. It's got many great qualities. It's not known for being the warmest option, right? Because the scales have been removed. That's what makes it superwash, right? Because those little fibers then don't like interlock and then like get closer and closer and closer. But because those scales are removed, there's also more place for air to move through them. So for warmth, you want to trap air, right? So I didn't want to just go full on non-superwash wool because these are young people still and they're not knitters. They are crunchy though. I thought that might be too much. So what I decided to do was combine a strand of non-superwash and a strand of superwash to hopefully get a little bit of most of both worlds. I did wash my swatch in the washing machine and just laid it out to dry, and it didn't show any signs of shrinkage. So, time will tell. We'll see what happens. So that's the reason I decided to use superwash and non-superwash. And I ultimately just went with like a neutral non-superwash. This is something I had in stash. It's not a yarn. I don't think it's even made anymore, but it's just like a neutral light fawn color, like grayish fawn. So yeah, I didn't use a pattern. What I did was look up the size of a car seat blanket, and it was generally suggested to do 17 by 30. So I did my gauge swatch, I washed it, I measured it, and my gauge swatch was not very big. Washed it, measured it, and then cast on for that number of stitches. I knew that I wanted it to be, I figured, okay, if it's 32, we'll divide that by 4 because I wanted to have 4 colors. And that's just how I started, right? So I was like, okay, each stripe is going to be about 8 inches, and we'll just go with that. Well, originally it was looking like this. And like that just seemed too skinny. It just did not seem proportionately, like it just didn't feel good to me. So ultimately what I decided to do is do 3 stripes, full stripes that match. And then what I did is on the 4th stripe, I picked up along one side, and then I had live stitches here. And I just decided to do half of a full stripe on the top and the side. And so I think that gave it tied it in nicely together. I think it looks intentional. And I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. Yeah. I like it. I think it's sweet. I think it's modern, but not just seen the Instagram, or I'm sure it's TikTok originally, where she's just like, that it's like some sort of designer that does children's clothing, and it's just sad beige clothes for sad beige children. So it's like not modern in that way, I hope. But anyway, so I thought it turned out pretty good. I'm pleased with it. Yeah. And my pickup was just 1 to 1 or 1 to 2. So 1 row, 1 stitch for every garter ridge. So 1 stitch for every 2 rows of garter. And it worked out nicely for the edge. Yeah, I think it looks really good. I'm pleased with it. So that's, again, 2 sport weight strands. I think I knitted on US 6s, but I knit very loosely, so that'd probably be like a US 8 for most human beings. And that's my little stroller blanket that easy to sent off. Is that all I needed to talk about? Boo boo. Blanket. Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's what I did. Okay, and then the next thing I have to show you is, I showed it to you last time, right? The Aurora Cabin shawl. So this is a shawl by Stephen West, which he's doing as hybrid knit along. So I think I showed you my colors last time. It's a bluebird. Yes, I did, because somebody commented. So this is sort of bluebird inspired coloring, but you know, take it with a grain of salt. And here is mine so far. So I have, I'm on the garter stripe section. Like, how fun is this stinker? How fun is that? Is that not the most fun texture? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I really was anticipating it being a total pain in the butt. It really wasn't. It was very enjoyable. The only thing that's a pain in the butt is that you are carrying all 5 yarns up the side, which is a little bit of a pain. But to be honest with you, it's not that much more of a pain than carrying like 3 yarns up the side. And you don't have to. You could cut them after each row if that's your jam. And so it does kind of make my I-cord edge look a little bit warblier than maybe it normally does. But not, I think after it blocks, I don't think I'll be able to tell. I'm a little bit nervous because one of my yarns is a single ply, and you do have these really stretched slip stitches, but just keep our fingers crossed. I think it's really nice. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, I really am enjoying it. Just as a reminder, I'm using all of these yarns I had in stash. So I am using Tosh Sock. This is Brick Dust. This one is, I think, Vintage Lace, but I could be completely wrong about that. Dr. Zhivago's Sky, which is the single ply, so that's Tosh Merino Light. I'm using Quince & Company Finch in the Fox colorway, and another Crafty Girls Strong Sock in the Deep Blue Sea. Ooh, how good that looks. In the Deep Blue Sea colorway. And then I have a brown just as a backup, just in case. Yeah, so it's very enjoyable. I think originally I was planning on doing these 3 as Bluebird inspired. Inspired because bluebirds are actually much rarer than that, but still. So yeah, I am actually, it's not my normal color. I mean, it's adjacent to my normal color. It's not like, you know, neon or anything, but it's still not colors I would normally put together. So I'm enjoying it. I'm just gonna keep showing it to you. So yeah, that's what I'm knitting on. Gus was just licking something in his sleep, which was very cute sounding. I won't lie though, earlier in the week when he was doing that and I was emotionally frazzled, I was like, oh my God, stop it! I can't take it anymore! Life, yo. She's a rough one sometimes. Oy vey. So I hope you're enjoying your January. I hope you're finding enjoyment in your January. How about that? I hope you're finding enjoyment in your January. I'll talk to you in another few weeks. Maybe I'll do a book episode. I don't know. Maybe there'll be a Pleistocene reviewed knockoff zine coming your way. I don't know. The world is open. We'll see what happens. I'll talk to you next time.